Also, let's reflect also, we had the previous Psalm 119, right? The Torah, the theme of Psalm 119, the Torah, our way of life, and was able to touch on some of the basics. There was another audio, right, to share here in the season. Psalm 119 also comes up roughly around when we begin off with the first of the Torah readings and feedings, roughly around that season according to the royal order. And previously we had went into a record and a reasoning on the Psalm 119, and bringing out some of the practical usages of it. For example, in learning the basic 22 of the Hebrew alphabet, or the Aleph Beit, the first house. Also, how the psalm is constructed as a kind of as a teaching both of Torah and significantly of the Hebrew, the basics of the Hebrew. So I'd like to share the audio as well as this when we start out with Bereshit. We started with Bereshit, Genesis, in other words, Genesis. And in starting with Genesis, even the first chapter, there are what are said as 22 creations. And that became even very interesting in the connection of the 22 letters of the Hebrew Aleph Beit and some of the principal teachings that we have from Scripture. In the beginning was the Word, and He created everything through His Word, and the 22 letters and the 22 creations. So I like to share that audio because we were able to have a full, and we also was able to podcast it, or to, what do they call it, live stream it on Rastafari Jews, on the Rastafari Yehudim, as well as the first 2 hours on Rastafari students. So here again, hopefully for this night, the technicians, you know what I mean, Web Mistress and the technicians can have everything, you know, up and running and everything on the Rastafari Jews, the Rastafari Yehudim. As we go forward, we want to strengthen, you know, have another channel, ideally speaking, perhaps Rastafari Jews, but to acquaint some of the regular viewers, you know, and also the ones that engage I and give thanks to, you know, the viewers, to the subscribers on the various different platforms, but especially on Rastafari Jews after what had happened on Sabbatical, you know, a while ago. But anyway, we growing in grace and the knowledge. So here, the T to T, or Testify Tuesday. Here, the Rastafari podcast. Here, the Tuesday podcast, the Testify Tuesday podcast on the air and in the IRIT. Yes, I, Rastafari. I'm going to testify. I'm going to testify what Jah has done for I said I'm going to testify what Jah has done for I. Hey, hear the evening psalm.
Psalm 82.
מזמור פ"ב, מזמור לאסף.
God standeth in the congregation of the mighty, the mighty, the mighty, the mighty, the mighty, the mighty.
אלוהים ניצב בעדת אל.
He judgeth among the gods, the gods, the gods, the gods, the gods, the gods.
בקרב אלוהים ישפוט.
How long will ye judge unjustly and accept the persons of the wicked? Selah. Defend the poor and fatherless. Do justice to the afflicted and needy. Deliver the poor and needy. Rid them out of the hand of the wicked. They know not, neither will they understand. They walk on in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are out of course. I have said, ye are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High. But ye shall die like men, and fall like one of the princes. Arise, O God, judge the earth, for thou shalt inherit all nations. Inherit all nations. Inherit all nations. Inherit all nations.
The evening psalm, right here, the evening psalm for the third day of the Shavua, the third day of what's called the week. from the groundation. Here. We're at the Tuesday, which is the third day. And what's interesting is I think that the audio would like to share, which is a little bit of an overflow, because the chalice has to fill before it flow over. And this is a very, very important overflow right here. We'll bring up the title just after this right here. But the first thing first is the evening psalm and today's daily psalm. Daily psalm here is Psalm 84. We're going to ride up with more on Psalm 84. But I'd like to share this right here on Real Hebrew, the Paleo Hebrew, the use of even J, a lot of the reasonings about the J and Cha and the Yah. But Psalm 119, very important. It's one of the longest psalms. It is the longest psalms within the scriptures, about 176 verses right there. But there is a pattern. Like every 8 verses, it focuses on one particular in order of the Hebrew Aleph Bet, the alphabet. And then as we get into the Hebrew, we'll find that the first words of each of the 8 verses also begin respectively speaking. You know what I mean? And so it's an interesting thing. It's even a more interesting study, as we can grow. Little by little, we can take, one fidel or one letter at a time and grow in our hearts and the 999 minds. But here as a compliment for the standing psalm, the evening psalm. So we have Psalm 82, the evening psalm for the third day that's called in the West among the Gentiles, Tuesday. So here for the third day, a compliment to that chant that Isis, Psalm 82. Was very interesting. I've said Ya Elohim, another very important reason, because a lot of confusion about what that means, because you hear what a lot of people say, but not really what the Hebrews, how did the Israelites look at it? The language tells us a lot. So Psalm 119, going to ride up with more of that overflow reasoning, but here the compliment, the chant, the Isis, right, keeping it Levitical, right, among I and I Rastafari, we have Rashilo, rights of the poor, bringing out the essence of Psalm 82 that's themed corrupt judges arraigned. Yes, I. Yeah. Rastafari, Holy Emmanuel, Jamarcus, Marcus.
Behold, I come to teach all teachers, dismantling all of their false leaders, liberating all Africans. That's Shiloh, holy only mission. Liberating all Africans. That is Rasta mission. So tell them, Justice, this is judgment on Babylon. Where Rasta comes to defend the rights of the poor. For the oppression of the poor have I arrived. Yes, I come to defend the rights of the poor.
That means that we
keep on stopping on. Give up the fight. Yeah. Keep on stopping on. Give up the fight. Yeah. Keep on stopping on. Give up the fight. Yeah.
So here towards the overflow of Psalm 119 right here. Here are some basics. Sorry, rock myself into niggas.
Ashrei Timimei Darek Haholikim Betorati Yahuwah Ashrei Anotzrei Edota.
Then said he unto them, Therefore, every scribe which is instructed Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, He, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yod, Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samif, Ayin, Pe, Tzadik, Kuf, Resh, Shin, Tav, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, He, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yod, Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samif, Ayin, He, Tzadik, Kuf, Resh, Shin, Tav, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, He, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yod, Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samif, Ayin, Pe, Tzadik, Kuf, Resh, Shin, Tav, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, He, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yod, Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samech, Ayin, He, Tzadik, Kuf, Resh, Shin, Tav, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, He, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yod, Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samech, Ayin, He, Tzadik, Kuf, Resh, Shin.
The 22
Tav.
right there. Tav. Just going to the 22 right there with Ras, Michael, and Sons of Negus on the dub right there. And at a different pace, that was the names based on Psalm 119 of the 22 letters, sounds, and letters of the Hebrew, the Yehudit. And here's next down right here.
Rastafari, Abba, Gada, Awazat, Sataya, Kaya, Mana, Sai, Patala, Warasha, Abba, Gada, Awazat, Sataya, Kaya, Mana, Sai, Patala, Warasha,
Then said he unto them, Therefore, every scribe which is instructed unto the kingdom of heaven, 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 the kingdom. Then said he unto them, Therefore, every scribe which is instructed unto the kingdom of heaven, 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 kingdom of heaven. Then said he unto them, Therefore, every scribe which is instructed unto the kingdom of heaven is like unto a man that is an householder, which bringeth forth out of his treasure things new, and old, 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 new.
Here. Interesting. Every scribe, even though Yeshua, Robbeinu, he buns out certain scribes, certain Pharisees, certain ones, he also says to us that every scribe that's instructed, so as disciples and Rastafari students and Talmudim, Dekam as a Morit, Dekam as more as disciples, Dekam as more disciple in the Amharic, Talmud, disciple in the Hebrew, that's instructed to the what? Kingdom of heaven. Right? Yeah, bringing out the treasures. Right? Here. I'd like to share this here. And the clip here is called, let's just give it the name. So this was recorded around when we did the first Aliyah in the series, or the first, should we say, Torah reading and feeding begins off with the first book of Moshe called Genesis Bereshith. And around that time in that season, Psalm 119, according to the royal order, rose up for the chant. And we were seeing the connection between Psalm 119 that is seen, the Torah, Jah's direction, instructions, the Torah, Jah way of life, and how the psalm itself is constructed and built, both in its Hebraic sense and even based on the translative sense as a point of reference, even for learning the basics of the Hebrew, as that audio we just played right there. It was going over the letter that you'll find in the better Bibles of Psalm 119, every 8 verses, progressively, another of the 22 Hebrew alphabet. But then, when we were studying Genesis chapter 1, and in some of the Ethiopic manuscripts, the churchical teachings, as well as certain Judaic and Hebrew readings and teachings, we found a similar truth was pointed to, and that was concerning the 22 creations. There was 22 creations, and how the 22 it linked right with the Hebrew Aleph Beit, the alphabet, both in the ancient and some modern Jewish writing that was based on some ancient, Hebrew and Judaic teachings, but also in Ethiopian and churchical manuscripts as well. So this is what we go into in this audio that's called Psalm 119, and we have RSS number 1. So even though here we're at the third book of Moshe, because the Psalm 119 is Torah, Jah's way of life, and the 22 letters linking with Genesis and creation. So beginning off here, and what's interesting about Leviticus, that Leviticus is often one of the first things that are taught to the Judaic, and they say Jewish today, but we say Judean, like in the sense of the scripts that's taught to, Israelitish, and even in latter day terminology, Jewish students, Jewish children. And it's kind of interesting because you look at, Leviticus, it's the last book, if it's taught even at all to Christians, right? But it's one of the first books, right? One of the first areas that is taught. And it said, why do we begin off with instruction with Leviticus for children? Because they are pure. Because here we have the Lord's direction of purity. So here, even connecting that here with Psalm 119, real Hebrew versus Paleo, what people call Paleo Hebrew, and J and Jah, Jehovah, looking at the Royal Amharic as well as the HSV. So this audio here, we go into the Hebrew, the scripture, as well as the Royal Amharic. So here, this, brothers and sisters. Yes, I overflow right here.
Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam.
Shavua Tov, Shavuot Awab, Shavuot Tov, Shavua, referring to the week, or more correctly, like the 7 days. Here at the first day, Ethiopically known as the Ehud, and here from the Shina Fitret, ancient Israelite of Ethiopia and Orthodox churchical document, the science of creation, the creation, here, beginning with the first sabbatical study for I and I Rastafari, sabbatical strong here with Bereshith, in the Reshith here. Once again, for this day here, according to the order of the sevens, fulfilling the previous 7. And here on the first day podcast, we call this the Sunday service in grace. Sunday, the day is not Sunday, but what is called Sunday, the first day. Here we have from the Shina Fitret, creation, Shina, the science of, or getting to the Gu'ez, it brings out the sense of the beauty or science. Now here's what's interesting, just a kind of a couple of extras, is that, beauty, in a sense, how we define beauty. They say beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Well, yes, I guess that can be so subjectively, but objectively speaking, beauty has to do with symmetry, the symmetry of creation, the science of creation, Shina Fitret. It's a little document. It basically has about 4 pages, right? And here we have this in the translation from the Ethiopic, or the Gu'ez, in the Royal Amharic. And here it says, Haya Hulet Shina Fitret Yetabalu Man Nacho. The 22 creations, science of creation, what are they called? Haya Hulet Shina Fitret Yetabalu Man Who Nacho. Who are they? Bilu. Saying, Ehud, of Ehud, first day, called in the West, in the Gentile Gregorian sense, called Sunday, but the Ehud, the first of the 7 days, Ehud, of Ehud, cement, 8, in a Z, him, in a Z, these, in a Z, him, and these, in a Z, him, and these, aratu bahiriyat yetabalu. And these four natures, bahiriyat, natures, bahiri, bahiriyat, aratu, four, yetabalu, they are said to be called, in that sense, said, isat, fire, waha, or in the ancient pointing, waha, water, nefasina, nefas, wind, inna, and nefasina, wind, and merit, we could say ground, in other words, ground, or earth, though earth is midbar, but this sense of it, merit, ground, chelema. Interesting, in the Hebrew, that word would be enunciated as chelema, as in the good is chelema, right? Chelema, darkness. Sabatu, the seven samayat, the seven heavens. Thus, in the Hebrew, the first verse we have shemayim. Some places, many places in the Bible where it says heaven in the singular sense, more correctly, it's the heavens. In many of the places, majority, not all, but majority of places, like here, Bereshith, in the beginning. So the Sabatu Samayat, Melaiktana, Melaikt, the angels or messengers, Inna, and Burhan, Burhan or Bran, light, not show. They are. So here on the first day, like this first day, according to that first day, there were 8. All right, let's count them. Fire, water, wind, and ground, darkness, the 7 heavens, angels, the angels or messengers, and light. Isat, Waha, Nefasina, Merait, Chelama, Sabatu Samayat, Melaiktana, Burhan, Nacho. So here, and it goes through each of the days to bring out the 22, we say 22 orders of creation, the 22 sciences of creation, the 22 symmetries of creation, the 22 creations, the 22 irations. And we had come across this. It's interesting in coming across this right here. We had recalled that Hebraically and Judaically, from the ancient times, even to the modern times, there are 22 creations that are enunciated or listed even here in the first book of Moshe, 22. And also there are 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, the Ha-Aleph Beit. We have the Ha-Aleph, the first, the Aleph Beit. Beit means house in the Hebrew. In the Hebrew, it would be pointed as, to show what we were saying even in the After the Shabbat podcast, for the Saturday Night Live on the air, the previous podcast, the Rastafari Sabbatical podcast. There's different speakings of the same word, right? Some might say believe. Others might enunciate as believe, right? Believe. So we have bayit, in the more archaic bayit, in the Ethiopic, according to the choosing of the particular fidel, the syllables, the sonants, bait. So the ha-aleph, the aleph, first letter of the Hebrew, aleph bait, and this corresponds to one of the ways of going through the alphabet, the fidel, in the Ethiopic and Royal Amharic is known as the abugida. Now notice the abugida. You might have heard about the abugida. I don't know if we have that track here from Teddy Afro on the abugida. Right? It got very popular, so from the abugida. Abugida he wizo. Full of the 7 is abugida he wizo. Abugida he wizo. Abugida he wizo. These are the first 7 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. If you go through the Hebrew alphabet, the first 7 letters, the Aleph, the Beit, the Gimel, the Dalet, the Wawe, Abugida, hey, okay, I said, okay, hey, with zo, the Ha, the We, or the Ve, some would say, and the Ze, the Zayin, the first 7. So there's an alternative way of going through the Ha-Hus, often referred to as the Ha-Hus from the first 2 sonants as we go across. So there's an across way of going through the fidel, the Ethiopic fidel, and then going from top to bottom. That order. And then there's the secondary, or I think it was actually the primary way, knowing the true history of the Israelites of Ethiopia and the blameless Ethiopians, the Abugida brings it out. So that right there also reflects the archaic, we could say Hebrew, Israelite, Israelitish, and Yehudi, the Yehudi, right, ish, right, roots. And this has nothing to do with the Khazraelis or any of that. They came later, all that came later on. So here, we're going to ride up right here and go through more of the detail from the Hebrew, right, of this Torah reading and feeding. Genesis chapter 1, verse 1 to Genesis chapter 6, verse 8. So right there, Sizzler Kalanji and the brethren from Judgment Yard going through the basics of the Hebrew alphabet as can be referenced in Psalm 119. Psalm 119. Now, in Psalm 119, the better Bibles, they have it in the transliteration in the Latin, in the like English letters, but the Latin letters brought out, each of the letter name, the names of each of the 22 Hebrew letters. And here in the Metzaf Kedus, in the Book of the Seven Seals, when we go to Psalm 119, it's called 119, but actually in the Metzaf Kedus, it is numbered as the 118, and in the parentheses, the kinf wist, in the parentheses, the kinf, in parentheses it says Meto Asara Zeteng, but here it says Mezmor Meto Asara Cement. Meto 100 Asara 10, like to say 10 and cement 18, because the ancient ordering of the psalm, I think it's from Psalm 9 and 10 in the ancient manuscripts is as one psalm. So the ordering of the numbering of the psalm from the ancients is like one psalm over after Psalm 9 and 10. So thus, when you're reading the Metzaf Kedus, the Book of the Seven Seals, the Authorized, Revised, Amharic Bible, the Bible of the conquering lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, of Kedamawi, Haile Selassie, HaKadosh, Baruch Hu, Baruch Hashem, we have it here as Psalm 118. So there's a lot of ancient, even though it's written all in the Ethiopic ciphers, or like the letters, the Fidel, as we would call it, right? But against Wist, in the parentheses, it corresponds to Psalm 119. So now some are talking about this paleo thing, and we have to just go in on it, paleo thing. Now, if you're talking about paleo as far as how there was, or we have today, the Asherit, what would be called the Asherit, or the square Hebrew, and this is why did it become square? Well, the Yehudi, the Judahites, were in Babylon due to the captivity, due to their own uckery, were in captivity for about 70 years. After 70 years, Ezra and Nehemiah, along with a remnant, returned to rebuild the wall of Jerusalem and to rebuild the temple. We have evidence from the Israelites of Ethiopia and the Church of His Majesty, the True Church, the Church of Philadelphia, the True Church, and the Ethiopian-Orthodox Tewahedo Church. We have evidence, ancient evidence, that there was correspondence between Ezra, during the time of Ezra and Nehemiah, with the Israelites of Ethiopia. Why? Well, when the Yehudi, when the Jews, when we say the Yehudi, the Judahites, the Yehudim, were in Babylon over the 70 or so years, things kind of fell off. Some things they lost this place. Some things were preserved. And when Ezra, during the time of Ezra and Nehemiah, they sought to restore the liberty. In fact, in our going to the Torah portions, reading and feeding, there's some that reproach in their first sin, original sin, their ignorance, and say, oh, you following the Jews, the white Jews, blah, 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 blah. Okay, if that's what you say, because you have not really studied very deeply. If you study very deeply, you will know this goes back, even with the pointing and Nikodot in the Hebrew, goes back to the time of Ezra and Nehemiah, roughly around the BC 500 years. And the Ethiopian correspondence, we published it in the book, a document, preliminary notes on Ethiopian history by a very great scholar at that time at CUNY at the City University of New York, Haile Haptu. Did a couple of vids on that as well on the Rastafari Jews YouTube channel, Haile Haptu, where he brings exhibits, Ethiopic exhibits, even translates certain ancient, not too well known in the Western Gentile world documents that points out what the correspondence was. Because Ezra and Nehemiah, they had certain scripts, they had certain scriptures, we could say in the Hebrew, or maybe it was even pointed some things from the so-called Paleo, or really the old pointing. The old pointing. Some even try to say that the Hebrew is Canaanitish. You got to kick rocks, kick rocks with that. Or the rock going to grind you to power with that, to powder. You know what I mean? Because that right there is just some foolishness, right? And when you really know who the Canaanites are, then you'll recognize why they try to say that Hebrew is really Canaanite. Now, one thing we noticed was studying the Afro-Semitic language is like studying English. You see how there's a similarity between English, right? And certain other Romance, so-called Romance languages like French and Italian and Portuguese or Portuguese and German. But you notice how there's also a nuance of a difference. Although some words are very similar, some words are different. I mean, you ever hear some of the, what's it called over there in England, the Scottish and, the Scottish and Gaelic speech, or different accents over in, say, England, even over here in America, how there are different accents. They're all speaking English between East Coast and West Coast, different accents of speaking the same language with those who are up north and those who are below the Mason-Dixon line. But they all speak in English. Some say, well, look, it's written different. It's written in this, they call it paleo way. Well, you can go on the computer today, and notice font. So the only real difference in what they call paleo and the Asherit or the square Hebrew, some say the, what do they call it again, Sumerian, cuneiform, the influence of the cuneiform, square. You know what I mean? It's like looking at graffiti. If you look at graffiti, different graffiti artists, right, and writing on walls, right, they write a little bit different. You go on your computer and you just type out in the beginning, Elohim or God created the heavens and the earth. All right, just write that out. And then paste it 5-10 times. Then go to your fonts. You can put it in all different kinds of fonts right there. Does that make it a different language? I'll give the item a moment just to consider what I is asking and saying. It doesn't make it a different language. We have to get off some of this foolishness right there. You know what I mean? Because at this time, we should be building the kingdom of heaven in the earth, right? But the first thing first is education. Right? Education is the key, and our orientation. What is our root sources that's outside of the Western Gentile paradigm? Many of the Hebrews and Israelite camps, they have nothing outside of the Western Gentile Western Gentile mentality. And it doesn't mean that we don't use Western Gentile resources until we do. But then we also are able to verify it, right, with something that's outside. As who's the group again? Not UB40. I like that group with the old tunes by them. Oh, Steel Pulse. As Steel Pulse says, I found a version that's not the King James Version. Doesn't mean we throw the King James Version away, but we compare and contrast. So here, as we're going to just demonstrate this right here. Go to, if you're able to right now, one might be traveling, listening to this, or one might listen to this on a replay, right? So you might be driving, going to work, or whatnot like that, or whatever, so you might not be able to get to the scripts. But when you can get to the scripts, remember this right here. Take note. Go to Psalm 119, all right, just to get the basics, 119. And we shared the Sizzler Kalunji Judgment Yard clip, right, once again, with him and them going through this right here, just a portion of this right here. Rastafari. So what is being done right there is we have in the Ethiopic, right, from the Fidel, the 7 tones, right, the 7 tones. When we say 7 tones, you call them vowels. We like to refer to them as sonants. Right? This is why often the Ethiopic Fidel is referred to as a syllabary. A syllabary is syllable sounds. It's like phonetics. It's phonetics, right? And each of the letters, because of the Fidel, have the jots and the tittles. It's where the nukudot in the Hebrew is connected with the jots and the tittles. So the influence of the documents that Ezra and Nehemiah received, right, from the Israelites of Ethiopia, helped and assisted them, the Israelites that have returned, the Judahites more correctly, because the 10 tribes of Israel were gone with the Assyrians, not to really return anytime soon back then. But we had the Judahites that returned after 70 years. So the books of Ezra and Nehemiah is the historical part that we're referring to. So what many ones and ones do, which is correct, in teaching the baby Hebrew or the basic Hebrew as the moreh. Some say a teacher in Hebrew is moreh. More directly, the moreh is that teacher that would teach the youths, right? Teach the youths roughly from the age of like 4 years old, the basic alphabet, and would choose the middle tone, the middle sonant, which is the ah sonant. Like when one say ah, say ah. So here in Psalm 119, we have Aleph, right? It's written as Aleph, A-L-E-P-H. Now, if you have a better Bible, it would have the Hebrew there, the Hebrew in the square Hebrew. It would have it there. Here we have the Schofield Study Bible, very small. So Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey. Here they have vowel, influenced by the European and, the Western, But then think about this for a moment. We see the name Jehovah, right? Jehovah, right? If you say there's no J, okay. Maybe there was no J at that time, so forth and so on. I'm talking about the European languages. But since we know that it was the German princes who worked with Martin Luther to produce the first translations, even from the Latin and from the other scriptures, we know that in German, the J is not pronounced as a J sound. It's pronounced as a Ya sound. It's pronounced as a Y sound. You ever see or hear Germans say yes, ya, 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 ya? You ever see it written? It's J-A, like Jaja. We'll see it as Jaja from this Western English way of speaking, but in the original ones that translated in German. So that means that even the English letters, the Latin letters in different European Romance languages have different sounds. So if we were pronouncing it from the original translators, the so-called Jehovah, it would be Yehovah, Yehovah, because the V has a W sound in German. Can you disprove that the first translations of the Bible from Latin in Europe did not come from the German translators, the Gutenberg printing press? So it's our perspective. See, perspective. So here at the 41st verse of Psalm 119, because every 8 verses comes another Hebrew letter. So Aleph, 8 verses, Beit, 8 verses, Gimel, 8 verses, Dalet, 8 verses, Hey, bringing us here to what, if you're reading it from a Western Gentile, Anglo-American perspective, you might see this as vowel, or something like that. But if you read it from the original translator's perspective, it'll be wow, wow, wow. Right? Some latter-day Khazarelis, you know, they basically say there's no W in Hebrew. They lie because they basically speak the language according to their mother tongue, according to their Germanic mother tongue. You know, as that influences a lot of our speeches, you know. Ones from the Caribbean have a heavy Caribbean accent. One from down south may have a heavy down south accent. It be that way sometimes. But anyway, wow, Zain, you see the one at 57th verse? How would you read that? It says C-H-E-T-H. Depends on your perspective. Based on the Anglo-American perspective that we have been taught, indoctrinated program, we'll see that's Chet, Chef. But no, it's Chet or Chet, Chet, Chet. See, that's a sound that we have been robbed of, you know, the sound. But notice this, a little baby, if you listen to a little baby, the little baby would gurgle, they call that thing, right? They go, right? That's that sound. So wait, a baby can make it, and you're laughing when ones and ones of I and I say the chet. You see, you have been robbed of the opening of the mouth. You need to reclaim and regain the opening of the mouth, the sonance. And as Dr. Malaku Emmanuel Bayan, His Majesty Kamawi Haile Selassie, special emissary to Black America, right? We can say the founder or the co-founder, because His Majesty is the founder in the spirit and truth, but the co-founder of the Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated, he spoke on why learn Amharic, right? And just briefly what we recall, he said that in learning these sounds, these fidel, these different sounds and tones, right? And learn it in grace, being as a child. Mistakes, errors will happen, but don't be so big that you can't be corrected. So here the C-H-E-T-H is chet, chet, chet. Then we get to the 65th, and we will say this based on the Western Gentile way of saying it as teth. When he says teth or teth, right? Now, if you look at the Hebrew letter associated with it, it's different than the last T in the Hebrew. The last T in the Hebrew. The ancient languages, Afro-Semitic languages, are very economical, right? So even in the Royal Amharic and Amharic, we don't have 2 A's for nothing. Right? The 2 A's are pronounced different. We'll get to the ayin thing just now. But this will be pronounced as tate, tate, tate. Now, how do we know this? We know this, well, first of all, just to testify right here, that when we were born, English was not our first language. So, therefore, we have maybe a little familiarity with this. But how do we know this was not based on that, was based on study. And based on study, we see that Ethiopically, the letter that corresponds with this in the Ethiopic is pronounced as te, te, te. You see, when we speak in this Western Gentile way, we don't really use our full speaking faculties, right? And that's really no fault of any of us on our own. It's just the way we've been brought up, programmed, familiarized, used to, right? But if we're born again and we learn and we grow in grace being as a child again, we can reclaim these things. So the tate, in order to say the tate, the tongue goes behind the teeth and there's a kind of explosive sound. We don't speak this way in the English. So, of course, brothers and sisters, it's going to be a little challenging, a little difficult, right? If you're not too proud, don't be too hard on yourself. So the tate. So the tate, different than the tau. The te in teferi is different than the te in fetari. Fetari is creator in the Royal Amharic. Fetari, right? Different than teferi. Some have said, previous generations of Rastafari, that Rastafari means head creator. Well, That's only half correct. Ras does mean head or chief or even self, depends on the context of its uses. But teferi means the one to be reverenced, the one to be respected. We say respected, or in another sense, the one to be feared. But it's teferi, not fe-a-ri, fe-a-ri. So this is why we pointed it out, before. I know some ones got offended, but you really shouldn't get offended unless you want to continue to go on and wrong. Let's go on. We go to the 73rd letter. It says J-O-D. Now, ones might say that from a Anglo-American, like British American kind of way of speaking, as Jod. But really it's Yod. How do we know this? Well, when we compare from the Metzaf Kedus, and the Metzaf Kedus, His Majesty's Bible, the 1961 Authorized Revised Amharic Bible, was not translated from the King James Version. Stop that. Stop lying on the King of Kings. There are, however, other Amharic Bibles that are coming out by careless Ethiopians that basically have been translated from English versions. Once again, His Imperial Majesty's Bible, the Book of the Seven Seals, according to Revelation 5:5, was not translated from the KJV, the King James Version. Years ago, we went to Monticello, New York, to confront Dr. York, Imam Isa, Malachi Z. York. He rambled on some nonsense about that up there. But anyway, we hear some people saying that. But it depends on what version they're looking at. If they're looking at the King of Kings version, that has not been translated from the King James Bible. But there are other Bibles that careless Ethiopians have out there in circulation. So sometimes brothers and sisters might find an Amharic Bible and might order it and, get it and say, oh, this is His Majesty's Bible. No, it's not. Many times it is not. But I still will say grab them for research and reference. All right, but check it out and find out. There's a Bible known as the New World Translation. You might have heard about it, the New World Translation. Maybe the NIV, New World Translation. There's an Amharic Bible that has been directly translated from there. And there's many errors, many errors. All right? But His Majesty's Bible reflects the ancient Ge'ez, right, as well as the ancient and the true Hebrew. Just to point that out right there. So here at the 73rd, right, verse of Psalm 119. So Psalm 119 is a good go-to in the Bible for the basics of the Hebrew. So we heard Sister Kalunji go through with the ba, ga, da, ha, wa, right, wa, za, cha, right, right, and ya is correct when we're going to the middle of the sounds according to the Fidel, according to the seven primary vowels, and that number 7. In the Ethiopic, the order is E, U, E, I, A, I, O. The exception to that is the H sounds and the A sounds. So when we say it, ha, hu, he, ha, he, ho. In ancient times, it was not so. In ancient times, it was he, hu, he, ha, he, ho. How do we know that? Because other letters have been modified in the Ethiopic to enunciate the he sound. But in the ancient, we didn't have those modifications because it was said according to the he, hu, he, ha, he, ho. So over time, sometimes people start to speak a little different. But then there's telltale signs when there's modification of letters to pronounce a sound that is for all the other letters. For example, ha, le, ha, right? 2 H's right there. Ha and the le and the ha. These are the first 3 letters when we come from the Ethiopic, right? And the Royal Amharic Fidel. Going across for the sounds is pronounced as ha, hu, he, ha, he, ho. With the le, some might think, well, since it's ha, hu, he, ha, it's la, lu, li, la. That is incorrect. It's le, lu, li, la. Some Ethiopians in their particular mother tongue might pronounce it as le, lu, li, la, lu, li, la, right? Because of their particular accent or tone or mother tongue. But correctly, it's le, lu, li, la, le, lo. So ha, le, ha, me. Let's go to the me to give another example. It's not ma, mu, me, ma, me, me, mo. But if you got that, if that's what you're doing right now, that's good. You basically got you got like six sevenths correct. But it's me, mu, me, ma, me, me, mo. Now in the Hebrew with the Nikodot, the pointings that Ezra during the time of Ezra, Nehemiah, and the restoration at that time introduced because they had wrote to the Israelites of Ethiopia, because the Israelites of Ethiopia had many of the ancient documents up until the time of Solomon. Because of Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, they had the ancient Ethiopic documents. They had the ancient Hebrew documents written within the Fidel and preserved like that. But what they did not have was the documents of the prophets after that time. They didn't have the documents of the prophets. Why? Well, the prophets spoke in a time after Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, after their only son, and after the 1,000 from each of the 12 tribes of Israel went there to establish and get for us a kingdom in the tops of the mountains. So there was an exchange of documentation. The Israelites of Ethiopia, I say Israelites of Ethiopia because at that time they were not Christian in the latter sense of Christian. This was during the time of Ezra, roughly around the 500s BC, BCE. So Ezra and his disciples requested from the Israelites of Ethiopia copies of the documents that they had from Bereshit, like from Genesis, from the Octatech. We don't really call it the Pentateuch because we include two other books, right? The two other books is Joshua, right? Or actually three other books: Joshua, right? Joshua, Judges, and Ruth. So some say Pentateuch, the 5 books of Moses, but then also included in the ancient Ethiopic ordering of the same set would include Joshua, Judges, and Ruth. So the Ethiopians, the Israelites of Ethiopia, sent their documents, and they also requested the documents of the prophets. And how do we verify this? Well, when we study some of the oldest of the Ethiopic Old Testament, it has a lot of unique words that could only come in from one reviewing ancient and old Hebraic documents from that time. So many times the proof is in the scripts, the proof is in the documents. So just to point that out, we're getting into a little bit more of that, but I think it's necessary to understand this aspect of our story and history, right, according to the teaching of His Majesty, so we can avoid a lot of these, speculation, supposition, assumptions. But here, we're at the 73rd verse to get to this letter here, which is in the English as J-O-D. Remember the J in German. Why do we keep saying German? Because the first translators of the Bible, right, the Bible from the Latin and other scriptures was Martin Luther and the German princes. That's a black German princes. Well, that's why you find so many black heads on the coat of arms and everything. Anyway, that's another related point. And then as the scriptures went from Germany, from East Europe to West Europe, and ones like Tyndale and others translated, they used that as a base text that came down to the Jerusalem Bible and later on came down to what we have today as the King James Version, 1611. So in the original translation, when they put a J there, they pronounce the J there as a Y sound. Make the J, people who talk all the J stuff, they don't know that because they're just running off of something that is partially true, that yes, this J letter was developed. It was actually an I sound. And if you know Old Latin, the Roman language, the I was pronounced as a Y. So we would not have said Julius Caesar, for example, right? And the C was not pronounced as an S sound. We would have said Julius Kaiser. Julius Caesar. Julius Kaiser. That's how his name would have been said in the time. Julius, not Julius. So yes, the J was developed, right, in the English or Latin by, you could say, the Romans or no doubt the Vaticanian by some of their ones and ones. Martin Luther went with that, but then it was pronounced different within the German. So instead of Jod, it would be Yod. At the 81st verse, going 8 verses down, we have Kaf, not Saf. The C was not pronounced as an S sound. That's only in later day confusion English as Kaf. Go 8 verses down, we have Lamed, the La. Go 8 verses down, we have Meme or Mame, the M sound, Meh. Go 8 verses down, we have Noon, the Ne sound. Go 8 verses down, we have Samek. Go 8 verses down, we have Ayin. Now, there's some that say that the Ayin is pronounced as I. From a Western Gentile state of mind, I do understand what they are saying, right? But they really don't understand what we are saying nor the evidence. It's a hard A sound. The soft A is Aleph. The hard A is Ayin. Some say that it's actually I, like I or EYE. How about AYE? AYE. Notice that A and Y is a diphthong. You know about diphthong? 2 sounds that come together to produce another sound. Ayin. So from a Western Gentile perspective, among some of the Lashon Kadash, Hebrew Israelite crowd, they say that this letter here at the 121st verse of Psalm 119 is an I. I understand that, but they don't know that the I, though we write it with one letter in English, we can write I with one letter like I, the first person pronoun. It can also be written as EYE, an E sound, right? It can also be written as AYE, like I, Captain, I. So anyway, this letter is Ayin, right? 8 verses down, we have Pei. Now, Pe or Pei can also be pronounced as Fe or Fe. Pe or Fe. We'll get into that as well. Some might dispute it, but we'll prove it. We'll prove what we have brought forward with more exhibits and more evidence, or as people say today, receipts. But receipts are only what you pay for. We're going to bring forth invoices. 8 letters down, at the 137th verse, we have T-Z-A-D-D-I. Now, this is very interesting because many ones, and hail up to the ISUPK Captain Azania and I guess his related captain Tazariak. Right? Interesting that they would say that this sound is really Taza, because one of their teachers not really having a good root or foundation, seeing in the English this one letter, right, and having the name here at the 137th verse as Zadai or Zadai, many would say Tazadai. In the ancient pointing, the letter is Sa. Here we use the dental, the teeth. Adai. It wasn't Taza. That's only because of losing the opening of the mouth, the power of our ancient speech. That some will say Tazadai. No, it's Adai. And we can cross-reference that, right, with the Ethiopic, with the Ge'ez, with the Amharic as our root first evidence, and also other linguistics, other languages. But you have to recognize that because the European, so-called white man, latter-day Canaanite, Edomite, Canaanite, because he did not pronounce it, he could not pronounce these sounds. Like, for example, B-A-C-H is the name of a composer, famous composer. All right? Some say he might have been black or whatnot. Hey, music is music, right? Anyway, his name is Bach. Now, the Germans, interestingly enough, in German, we do have that sound, right? So in some of the European languages, they do have some of these sounds. But then again, our people did spend enough time civilizing ones in the north, in Europe. Thus, all the blackheads on the coat of arms and other evidences they try to suppress. But here, at the 137th letter of the Hebrew alphabet, it's Adai. Adai. 8 verses down, we have K-O-P-H. Now, you notice at the 81st verse of Psalm 119, the letter is Kaf with a C. Over here at the 145th verse, they have K-O-P-H. This letter properly pronounced is Kof. Kof is Kof. Some of them, the Muslims and the Arab speakers, they say Gof. They pronounce it like almost like it's a hard G sound, Gof. But the Israelites of Ethiopia and the Afro-Semitic speakers of the Horn of Africa maintain, and elsewhere also in Africa, maintain that original sound among other peoples of the world, but not among the so-called Europeans, right? The letter would be Kof. 8 letters down, or 8 verses rather, 8 verses down from 145 brings us to 153, and we have Reish. 8 letters down, we have Sheen. Seen. We have Sheen when it's pointed, and also seen. Sheen here, but also in usage, we have Sheen pointed, and also seen. And then lastly, but not leastly, we have Tau. So even in the Hebrew, we have like 2 sounds that could be pronounced as K sounds. One is hard K, or we call special K, Kof, and the other is regular K, Kaf. We have 2 T sounds. We have Tait and Tau. Just to show, also with the S sound, we have Samek, Sa, and also the Sheen, syllabated. Now, here, we're going to write up, but I think it's important at the beginning to touch on linguistics, on language, because in the beginning was the word, sound, power. So here, right, here, and brothers and sisters, enjoy, and when I say have fun, enjoy the studies. I think a lot of ones because there's a desire to eagerly get this, and because they don't get it, and some things seems hard to get at first, ones get too frustrated. I seek to encourage ones not to get frustrated. You know what I mean? Let's study this as little children, right? Recognizing when we make a mistake, just be a child. Be a child in wrath, but not in knowledge. Here. Going from Psalm 119 here from the Metz of Kedus, we're going to go through these same letters so we can compare sort of sonically side by side. So once again, we have Aleph, the names of the letters. Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Wow, Zain, Chet, Et, Yod, Kaf, Lamed, Mim, or Maim, Nun, Samek, Ain, Pe, Fe, Adi, Kof, Reish, Sheen, Tau. Now here in His Majesty's Bible, Book of the Seven Seals, the conquering lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, and Kedamawi Haile Selassie's Metz of Kedus. Here, the same letters, Aleph, 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 Aleph. Beit, Beit, Beit. Gamel, Gamel, Gamel. Dalet, Dalet. Hey, Wow, Zai. Het, Het, Het. Et, Yod, Kaf, Lamed, May, Maim, No, Ni, Non, Sameket, Sameket, I, Fei, Fei, Day, Day, Kof, 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 Race, Race, San, San, Tawe, Tau. So here. This is how one of the ways that we compare and contrast, and then also looking at names. When we look at names and looking at certain names and the transliteration of names, it's very interesting to see the accuracy, right? Also correcting if there are some mispointings in the Masoretic by looking at the Ethiopic and more so at His Majesty Metzaf Kedus, the Book of the Seven Seals. The key is in the names. So here, the Shemot, the names. So here, going to ride up. Here we're at the 59 counting down minute mark, but we just went a little bit more so right there because it's very important that we start out this Shemester, right? In the beginning, Bit Reishith, in the beginning was the word, the Wisma. So here, the Braka, going to ride up Hebraically here. Yes, sir.
Barku et Yahuwah Hambarak. Barku et Adonai Hambarak. Bless Adonai, who is blessed. Baruch Adonai Hambarak le'olam wa'ad. Blessed is Adonai, who is blessed now and forever, now and forever. Baruch Adonai Hambarak le'olam wa'ad. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam. Asher bahar banu mikol ha'adim. U'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch ata Adonai noten ha-Torah. Blessed is Adonai, who is blessed now and forever and forever. Blessed art thee, Adonai, I Elohim, sovereign of the universe, King of the universe, eternal King, who has chosen I from among the peoples and given us the Torah, ha-Torah, Torato, his Torah. Blessed be thee, Adonai, who gives ha-Torah.
And a little interesting note right here is that Torah, Ethiopically is called the Orit. But what's interesting when you get to the roots, you find that the roots come to that oneness. So different speakers, different pronunciations here. Make I read up the scripture here for the Sunday, first day service here on the air and in the irit. Read up your Bible. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. In the name of the Father, the Shem Ha'ab, in the name of the Father. Yes, I. So here, today's daily psalm. Today's daily psalm is Psalm 84. We have Psalm 84. We're going to write off the Royal Amharic first. Go through the verse by verse. Have a midrash, very important study on today's daily psalm, Psalm 84. Go right here. Linville Thompson, Dillinger. This tune right here. Nati Dread, learn him. Amharic, right here. Yes, I. Clock Tower, Dubwise, Selector, right here. Yes, I. Rastafari.
Sounds called Nati Dread, learn him Amharic. That's why I'm doing afraid of button stick. Soul I am rock your soul, rock your soul. Well, tribes of Israel used to travel to Jerusalem. Run, come quick, no matter play no funny trick. Run, come quick, no matter play no funny trick. Then I teach trade, learn the Amharic. That's why I'm so afraid about the stick. You learn how to trade, learn the Amharic. That's why I'm so afraid about the stick. Well, I hear my man. He said it's 12 tribes, trade them, learn the Amharic. The Federation, trade them, learn the Amharic. Bobo Shanti, trade them, learn the Amharic. They say the Orthodox, trade them, learn the Amharic. And they say the Catholic, trade them, learn the Amharic. And if they trade, learn the Amharic. Still not the trade, learn the Amharic. Man not the roots, learn the Amharic. They not the trade, learn the Amharic. Still not the trade, learn the Amharic. Still not the dog, afraid of button stick. So all I have to do is run, come quick and be slick, and I'm not playing up on the trick. Say run, come quick, no matter playing up on the trick. Run, come quick, no matter playing up on the trick. Say not the trade, learn the Amharic. Feel about the son, I call the Amharic. Said Isaac Gabriel, lead in the 12 tribe of Israel. Said that Isaac Gabriel, he was leading the 12 tribe of Israel. Say the 12 tribes, trade them, learn the Amharic. The Federation, trade them, learn the Amharic. The Bobo Shanti, trade them, learn the Amharic. Man, they say the Orthodox, trade them, learn the Amharic. Man, they say the Catholic, trade them, learn the Amharic. Tell about the Amharic, no afraid about the stick. Tell them about the Amharic, no afraid about the stick. Tell them about the Amharic, no afraid about the stick. Tell them about the Amharic, no afraid about the stick. Say not the trade, learn the Amharic. You don't want to the bonus, don't want to think, don't want to think, don't want to think. Harasa, haramso, harisa, haramsa, moisa, seyata, kodina, yuza, sajinga, seyanso. Nemolato. What that I would say. Jalo, but Jaja love music. Jalo, the Jaja love music. Jalo music. And Jaja love music. Jalo. Until about the songs I would say the 12 tribes, trade them, learn the Amharic. Federation, trade them, learn the Amharic. Man, the Bobo Shanti, trade them, learn the Amharic. Man, the Orthodox, trade them, learn the Amharic. Man, they say the Catholic, trade them, learn the Amharic. Say they be trade, learn the Amharic. But I have commercial trade, I have business trade, I have financial trade, I have bathroom lock, I have Orthodox. If I relax, say you got to learn. Then I teach trade, live right. the tongues I would say. Say that you run, come quick about I play the funny tricks. Say that you don't pray the bad sticks. Say that you run, come quick about I play the funny tricks. Say that you trade, learn the Amharic. Show them the way. Step it out, I show them the way. So that them vast in the valley for a many years. They and God I show them the way.
Rastafari. As the master say, be as little children, be as a child again. Them heart children right here, hear this. Yes, I. Rastafari.
Elect up to light of this world. Remember now, lines of King David, Ark of the Covenant, Hebrew language, and you must, little children of the world, learn the Ashanti language, learn the ancient Hebrew language, learn the Twi, learn cuneiform, hieroglyphic, New Orpic, Tamarians, learn them languages there, learn the Amharic language. You see? You see the English language, trying your mentality,
Shalom again, shalom. We have today's daily psalm. We have
Psalm 84. How amiable are thy tabernacles, O Lord of hosts! My soul longeth, yea, even fainteth for the courts of the Lord. My heart and my flesh crieth out for the living God. Yea, the sparrow hath found an house, and the swallow a nest for herself, where she may lay her young. Even thine altars, O Lord of hosts, my King and my God. Blessed are they that dwell in thy house. They will be still praising thee. Selah. Blessed is the man whose strength is in thee, in whose heart are the ways of them, who passing through the valley of Baca make it a well. The rain also filleth the pools. They go from strength to strength. Every one of them in Zion appeareth before God. O Lord God of hosts, hear my prayer. Give ear, O God of Jacob. Selah. Behold, O God, our shield, and look upon the face of thine anointed. For a day in thy courts is better than 1,000. I had rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my God than to dwell in the tents of wickedness. For the Lord God is a sun and shield. The Lord will give grace and glory. No good thing will he withhold from them that walk uprightly. O Lord of hosts, blessed is the man that trusteth in thee.
Who is here? Justice. Who is here?
Yo! Justice!
Who is here?
Let's hear today's
that saved a wretch like me. I was lost, but now I'm found. Was lost, but now I see.
King David sits upon the heavenly throne.
Hallelujah. Rastafari. Yeah, we selected that there because of grace, the theme of grace. Here. Going to write up a little more on the Royal Heart, but here to bring out the theme in today's daily psalm, Psalm 84 on grace. Here's Israel vibration. Give I and I grace. So, Rastafari.
Sun, rain, moon, stars. Give I grace in the morning. Give I grace at noon.
Give I grace in the morning. Yes, I. Rastafari. So here we have Psalm 84. Let's give a ear to Psalm in Amharic, and then we'll go to the verse by verse, comparing and contrasting the HSV, Haile Selassie version, the Authorized Revised Amharic Bible, with the version that most of us have come to know, the KJV, highlighting, and bringing out any key significant differences that Jah brings to I light. Yes, I, Rastafari. So here, World Amharic, here, today's daily song.
መዝሙር 83 በቅንፍ 84 ለመዘምራን አለቃ በዋሽንት የቆሬ ልጆች መዝሙር። የሰራዊት አምላክ ሆይ ማደሪያዎችህ እንደምን የተወደዱ ናቸው። ነፍሴ የእግዚአብሔርን አደባባዮች ትወዳለች ትናፍቅማለች። ልቤም ሥጋዬም በሕያው አምላክ ደስ ተሰኘ። ወፍ ለእርሷ ቤትን አገኘች፣ ዋነሱም ጫጩቶቿን የምታኖርበት ቤት አገኘች። የሰራዊት አምላክ ንጉሴም አምላኬም ሆይ እርሱ መሠዊያህ ነው። በቤትህ የሚኖሩ ሁሉ የተመሰገኑ ናቸው፣ ለዓለምና ለዘላለምም ያመሰግኑሃል። አቤቱ እርዳታው ካንተ ዘንድ የሆነለት በልቡም የላይኛውን መንገድ የሚያስብ ሰው ምስጉን ነው። በለቅሶ ሸለቆ ውስጥ በወሰነው ስፍራ የሕግ መምህር በረከትን ይሰጣልና። ከኃይል ወደ ኃይል ይሄዳሉ፣ የአማልክት አምላክ በጽዮን ይታያል። የሰራዊት አምላክ አቤቱ ጸሎቴን ስማ፣ የያዕቆብ አምላክ ሆይ አድምጥ። አቤቱ መታመናችንን እይልን፣ ወደ ቀባኸውም ፊት ተመልከት። ከአእላፍ ይልቅ በአደባባዮችህ አንዲት ቀን ትሻላለች። በኃጥአን ድንኳኖች ከመቀመጥ ይልቅ በእግዚአብሔር ቤት እጣል ዘንድ መረጥሁ። እግዚአብሔር አምላክ ምሕረትንና እውነትን ስለወደደ ሞገስንና ክብርን ይሰጣል። እግዚአብሔር በቅንነት የሚሄዱትን ከመልካም ነገር አያሳጣቸው። የሰራዊት አምላክ ሆይ በአንተ የታመነ ሰው ምስጉን ነው።
Salam to Aina Sterling. Greetings. May Jah give you health on I behalf. Aina Sterling. Today's daily psalm, according to the royal order of the Ethiopian Hebrews and after the order of Melchizedek. Salam to Aina Sterling. Greetings. May Jah give you health on I behalf. Aina Sterling. Today's daily psalm, according to the royal order of the Ethiopian Hebrews and after the order of Melchizedek. Majesty, the righteous king, Karmawi, Haile Selassie, and here from the Authorized, Revised Amharic Bible, the Book of the Seven Seals, here in the HSV, Haile Selassie version side by side with the KJV, we ride up with today's daily psalm, Mezmore Dawit, Samanya Arat, Psalm 84, Mezmor Samanya Arat. And today's daily psalm is themed, Weda Mekdesu Guzo Mezmor. Wada Mekdesu, to the sanctuary, the holy place, as he who he be says, make them build for me a mikdash, a holy place. Bamarinya the Mekdesu, his holy place. Selassie is the chapel. Wada Mekdesu Guzo, the tribe to the sanctuary, to the chapel, mezmor, a chant, an intonation, vocal intonation. What a mekdesu guzo, mezmor. The tribe to the sanctuary psalm. Today's daily psalm, mezmor, samanya arat. So here, side by side, KJV, King James Version, the HSV, Haile Selassie version, the Book of the Seven Seals. Superscription first. Firstly, Besem Ab, Wewele, Wemenfes Kedus, Ahadu, Amlak. In Gemaralim. We begin in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Ahadu Amlat, the one source. To the chief musician upon Gittith, Had Gittith, psalm for the sons of Korah. Lemezammarana leka bewashint. So here we have in the Hebrew, in the KJV superscription for today's daily Psalm, Psalm 84, we have Gatith. Gatith refers to the wine press, to the wine vat. Is the harvest psalm. I think Psalm, if I'm correct, Psalm 8 also is the first place we have that in the superscription. But here we have Bewashint, upon the flutes, Bamarinya. Yeah, Korei Lejoch Mezmor. Yeah, Korei of Korach. Livnei Korach, the sons of Korah. Yeah, Korei Lejoch Mezmor. A psalm, a chant, a vocal intonation of the sons of Korah. Superscription, Kuteran, verse 1. Yesarawit amlakoi, madariawochihin, demin yetaweddadu nacho. How amiable, how lovely are thy tabernacles, O Lord of hosts. Yesarawit amlakoi, O source of hosts, of sarawit, of labors, of army, of the divine campaign. Yesarawit amlakoi, O source of hosts, O source of laborers, Yesarawi Tamlakoi, Madariawoche, Indemin, Yetaweddedu Nacho. How Yetaweddedu, how ileful, how beautiful, in the sense of loved and lovely. How lovely, it says how amiable, how lovely are Madariawoche, Indemin, Yetaweddedu Nacho. Kutar Hulet, verse 2. Nefse, ye egziavi harinna de babayocha, te wedalech, te nafik amalech, lebim sagayim, behyawam lak destesenye. My soul longeth, nefse, my psyche, my soul, nefse, longeth, yea, even fainteth for the courts of the Lord. Gaziavi harin, of the state of the good, the generous Abba, de babayoch, the courts, te wedalech, te nafik amalech. My soul longeth, KJV has longeth, here we have te wedalech, she loves, te nafik amalech, she's longing for Egeziavi Harina de Babayoch. Nefse, ye Egeziavi Harina de Babayoch te wedalech, te nafik amalech. Libim, Sigayim, Behyao Amlak Destesenye. My heart and my flesh. Libim, my heart. Sigayim, and my flesh, my mind, to say my mind and my body. Behyao Amlak Destesenye. KJV says, crieth out for the living God. Bamarinya, Lebeim Segayim, Behyao Amlak Destesenye. Is happy, is rejoices, is made happy in the living Behyao, Hyao Amlak, in the living source. Behyao Amlak Destesenye. Kuter source, verse 3. Wof le'erswa beitin agenyech. Wof le'arswa beitin agenyech. Wanosema chachutochuana yemita norbeta vet agenyech. Yesarawit amlak nugusim amlakim hoy arsu masawiyahin. Yea, the sparrow. Wof le'arswa beitin agenyech. The sparrow, the bird of the soul, the sparrow hath found an house for herself. La'arswa, wolf, la'arswa, beitin, agenyech. And the swallow a nest for herself. Wanos, the swallow, the wanos, wanosim, chachutochuana, yematanorrebeta beit agenyech. Hath found a nest for herself, for her young ones, where she may lay her young. Even thine altars, O Lord of hosts, my King and my God. Yesarawit amlak, negusim, amlakim hoy, arsu masawiyahinno, Yesarawit amlak. The source of hosts, of laborers, of workers, of laborers, of co-laborers. Yesarawit, of armies. Yesarawit amlak. Negusim. My king, I negus. Negusim. Amlakim. And I source, I God. Amlakim hoi. Oh, my king and my God. Arsu. Nasawiyahinno. It, the eyes altar. It is the eyes altar. He is the eyes altar. Kutar Arat, verse 4. בביته ימינו לו יתמסגנו nacho. לעולמנה לזלממה ימסגנוהל. Blessed, praiseworthy, nacho, are they that dwell in thy house. Nacho. They will be still praising. They will ever be praising forever and ever, for ever and ever. Be praising thee, I. Man, Selah. Pause. Uter Amist, verse 5. Abetu, erdatao kaante zena yahonelet. Belbuma yalainya winmengeriam yasibulso miskunno. Blessed or happy, praiseworthy, miskunno is the man whose strength is in the eye, whose strength is in the eye. Erdatao. His how erdatao kaante zen yahonelet is with and through the eye. Erdatao kaante zen yahonelet, in whose heart are the ways of them. In whose heart belibum, and in his heart yelayin yawin menged, the higher way. Yelayin Yawim Menged, the highway, even the king's highway, but Lubum, Yelayin Yawin Menged, Yemiyasib Buso, in whose heart he thinks, he meditates, Yemiyasib Buso, Miskunno, praiseworthy, happy is he. Kutar Sadist, verse 6. Belik Soshalek Owista, the Westano Sifra, Yahigam Mehira Berekatina Yisatalina, who, passing through the valley of Habaka, the valley of weeping, make it a well. The rain also filleth the pools. Now here we have a slight diversion, and very interesting in the Hebraic sense. When we look at the Sefer Tehillim, the Moreh can be brought out as the rain, the Moreh, but also the teacher of HaTorah. The teacher of HaTorah is also referred to as the Moreh. So here we have in the Hebrew sense, Gam Berakota Ya'ite Moreh. But the Moreh, or the Moreh, is the teacher of Torah, and this is brought out in the HSV, Haile Selassie, the Metzaf Kedus, and the King of Kings, in the Book of the Seven Seals. Yahig of the law, Yahig Memher, the teacher of the law, the teacher, the Rebbe, the teacher of the law, the Moreh, Yehiga Memhira Bereketina Yisetalina. So there's two ways this may be read, even from the archaic Hebraic, where it says Gam Berakota Ya'ite Moreh. We have it brought out here in the HSV, Haile Selassie version, in the Book of the Seven Seals, says Yehig Memhir, the Moreh, Bereketina Yisetalina, which may be translated as, yea, the early rain clothed it with barakot, blessings. Or the rain also filleth the pools, but also Yehiga Moreh, Yehiga Memhir, Berekatin Yisetalina, the teacher of law, of Torah, blessings give, for the teacher of Torah gives blessings. Yehiga Memhir, Berekatina Yisetalina. Bringing out the archaic, the ancient Hebrew, and the royal Amharic. Kutar Sabat, verse 7. Kahayil Wadahayil Yehedalu Yamalik Tamlak Belsion Yitaya. They go from strength to strength, from strength to strength. Kahayil, Hayil, from Hayil Wadahayil Yehedalu. They proceed from strength to strength. What's interesting about this verse here in the Royal Amharic is the correspondence with the Hebrew, the Sefer Tehillim, where we have Yelku Me Hayil Il Hayil. They go May Hayil. So even in the Hebrew we have Hayil. The Royal Amharic we have Hayil, as in Haile Selassie, the power of the Trinity, the true God of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. Yelku May Hayil Il Hayil. They go from strength to strength. Yamalik Tamlak Bezion Yitayal. The God of gods. The Royal Amharic brings out the God of gods, the source of sources. Yamalik Tamlak Bezion, in Zion Yitayal is seen. Every one of them, KJV says, in Zion appeareth before appeareth before Elohim. Yerael Elohim b'Tzion. Every one of them appeareth before Elohim in Zion. But the alternative reading of this is that Elohim, the Amalek Amlak, the God of gods, the good of goods, Zion Yitayal is seen in Zion, Kutar Cement, verse 8. Yisrawit Amlak Abetu. Selotena Sema, Yaikob Amlakoi, Adimt. O Lord God of hosts, Yesarawit, Amlak, Avirtu, my Father, his Father, the source of hosts, the source of the co-laborers, the source of the army, the source of the campaign. Yesarawit, Amlak, Avirtu, Selotena, Sema, hear my prayers, Seloten, Sema. Yaikob Amlakoi, O source of Jacob, Yaikob Amlakoi. Adimt. Give ear, Selah, pause. Kutar Zeteng, verse 9. Avirtu, Metamenachnina Ilin, Rodek Abahowim Fita Tamelket, Avirtu, I father, his father, father, the house, Metamenachnin, I trust, I confidence, Metamenachnin, Ilin, see for us. Look, in essence, see for us. And look upon the face of thine, thine anointed. In the Hebrew, we have it brought out as Wehabet apnei meshacheka. The eyes Messiah here in the royal heart, whether towards Kebahoim, to the one you, and toward the one you have anointed, Kebahoim, the one who is painted, the one who is anointed, what Kebahoim feet, the face, the presence, the perception, Tamelkat, pay attention in the sense of look, pay attention to the face, the presence, the perception of your anointed one. Kutar Asar, verse 10. Ka'ala fayilik ba'da babayochih anditak ena tishalalech behatana din kwanoj kamek emet ayilik begziavi hervetet alzen maretuhu. For a day in thy courts is better than 1,000. Ka'ala fayilik ba'da babayochih andit en tishalalech. I have chosen to be a doorkeeper in the house of High of I and I, God, I and I, source, than to dwell in the tents of wickedness, than to dwell in the tents of ratchetness. And I've chosen to kind of cast my lot in the house of the sustainer, the good, the generous Father, more than to sit in the tents of the uckers, of the ratchet. Kuter Asara'and, verse 11. Mogesina kavrini seta. Egziavihir bekinet yemihedutin kamelkam negara yasat achuan. For the Lord God is a sun and a shield. Now here in the Hebrew, it actually says Kishemesh, for a sun, Umageni Hoa Elohim, for he who he be is a Shemesh, Umagain, a sun and a shield here in the Royal Amharic, bringing out the true innocence, not to get caught up on sun worship, but clearly it says he is a sun, the Hebrew, but here the Royal Amharic, Egaziavi Ramlak, the sustainer, the good, the excellent Father, source. Meheretina, mercy. Unetin, truth, reality. Sila, because weddede, because Gaziari, the sustainer, the source, loveth. Meheretina unetin, because he loveth mercy, loving kindness, and truth, and reality. Learning to read the Hebrew sign language for the Lord God is a sun and a shield. The sun and the shield, the Meheretina unetin, mercy and truth and reality. The Lord will give grace and glory. Morgesina kavrin yisetal. He will give morges, appreciation, appreciate love, morgesina, in sense of grace, undeserved merit and favor. Morgesina kavrin, and glory, kavrin yisetal. Egziari her, bek innet yemihedutin, kamelkama negarayasat achuim. No good thing, no good thing, no good thing will he withhold from them that walk, that trod upright, like the sustain the good, the generous the kinnet, straightforwardness, with integrity, straightforwardness, those who go, those who trod in straightforwardness and integrity, from good thing, from any good matter, any good thing, they will not want, they will not be wanty, they will not be lacky of any good thing. Kuter Asara Hulet, verse 12. Yes, Rawit Hamlakoi, Beante Yetameneso, Miskunno. O Lord of hosts, yes, Sarawit Amlakoi, O source of hosts, O source of armies, O source of co-laborers, O source of the campaign, yes, Sarawit Amlakoi. Blessed, praiseworthy is he, be he, beante, yetameneso, miskunno. Blessed, happy, praiseworthy is the man that trusteth, beante, yetameneso, the rastaman, beante, yetameneso, miskunno. Praiseworthy is the man that trusted in the eye, that remaineth in the eye. Yesarawit amlakoi beante yetameneso miskunno.
Keep us the teachings of His Majesty, for we no want no devil philosophy. Feel it in the one drop.
መዝሙር 83 በቅንፍ 84 ለመዘምራን አለቃ በዋሽንት የቆሬ ልጆች መዝሙር። የሰራዊት አምላክ ሆይ ማደሪያዎችህ እንደምን የተወደዱ ናቸው። ነፍሴ የእግዚአብሔርን አደባባዮች ትወዳለች ትናፍቅማለች። ልቤም ሥጋዬም በሕያው አምላክ ደስ ተሰኘ። ወፍ ለእርሷ ቤትን አገኘች፣ ዋነሱም ጫጩቶቿን የምታኖርበት ቤት አገኘች። የሰራዊት አምላክ ንጉሴም አምላኬም ሆይ እርሱ መሠዊያህ ነው። በቤትህ የሚኖሩ ሁሉ የተመሰገኑ ናቸው፣ ለዓለምና ለዘላለምም ያመሰግኑሃል። አቤቱ እርዳታው ካንተ ዘንድ የሆነለት በልቡም የላይኛውን መንገድ የሚያስብ ሰው ምስጉን ነው። በለቅሶ ሸለቆ ውስጥ በወሰነው ስፍራ የሕግ መምህር በረከትን ይሰጣልና። ከኃይል ወደ ኃይል ይሄዳሉ፣ የአማልክት አምላክ በጽዮን ይታያል። የሰራዊት አምላክ አቤቱ ጸሎቴን ስማ፣ የያዕቆብ አምላክ ሆይ አድምጥ። አቤቱ መታመናችንን እይልን፣ ወደ ቀባኸውም ፊት ተመልከት። ከአእላፍ ይልቅ በአደባባዮችህ አንዲት ቀን ትሻላለች። በኃጥአን ድንኳኖች ከመቀመጥ ይልቅ በእግዚአብሔር ቤት እጣል ዘንድ መረጥሁ። እግዚአብሔር አምላክ ምሕረትንና እውነትን ስለወደደ ሞገስንና ክብርን ይሰጣል። እግዚአብሔር በቅንነት የሚሄዱትን ከመልካም ነገር አያሳጣቸው። የሰራዊት አምላክ ሆይ በአንተ የታመነ ሰው ምስጉን ነው።
Miskunno, praiseworthy. Miskunno, that's the same word right there, Psalm, where we have it in Psalm 1, according to Haile Selassie Bible. Miskunno, blessed is the man, that's how it's translated in English, but praiseworthy. In the Hebrew, it's not the same word blessed either, it's actually ashrei, which basically means happy, the happiness of the man who tries like this. So here, just reminding ones and ones, we have like about 11 minutes before we go into the grace period of this podcast right here. 11 minutes, so call in, 515-602-9761, 515-602-9761, especially those who are maybe listening to the Blog Talk, the live streaming on the Blog Talk. It goes for the first 2 hours. Yes, so to get the extra Iowa right here, getting a little bit more into the breakdown, the ancient build on today's daily Psalm 84. There's well, let's ride up.
Give us the teachings of His Majesty, for we no want no devil philosophy. Feel it in the one drop.
Many are calling, no? Many are called, but few are choosing. Many are called, but few are choosing. I was called, and I was chosen. It's funny, but it's true.
Fully catch it on the replay. Call in to hear the full now, or hopefully catch it on the replay. 515-602-9761 to hear the full now. Call in. 515-602-9761. Call in 515-602-9761. Call in 515-602-9761. Call in to hear the full now, or hopefully.
We can rely on the conquering lion. Most lighter, you're the only one we can rely on. Love the conquering lion. Most lighter, you're the only one we can rely on.
Yes. Wanted to share this first right here, but going through the Royal Amharic. And going through the Royal Amharic, we brought it out because the verse and the translation brings out the significance. There's some diversions, like they will be seen, but then in the same Hebrew and Royal Amharic reading, that they will see Elohim, they will see God, which is interesting. Can God be seen or can He not be seen? We're going to follow up on that reasoning. Seen, sight. So here we have like 8 minutes, but we're live streaming on Rastafari Jews on the YouTubes. Rastafari Jews, I think the Rastafari Student right now, just the first 2 hours. So if you're over at Rastafari Student, get over to Rastafari Yehudim, or you can call in 515-602-9761. Ones and ones get the 1 cent per minute. That's space on your telephone company, T-Mobile, Metro PCS, charging to call into chat lines, charging a penny per minute. So one can go to Rastafari Jews to hear the full, or can check out the replay by the next day. But here for today's daily Psalm, we have this marked as a play first right here. This Tehillim, this Psalm, Tehillim, Hallel, the Elilta exaltation, a bigging up of Adonai Jah, Rastafari, esteem, joy in Jah's sanctuary. So we link this with Selassie is the chapel. But here it is.
Shalom, Habarim, shalom. Today's daily psalm from the Sefer Tehillim. We have the longing for Jah's sanctuary and the joy in the sanctuary. Mizmor Fe Dalet. Mizmor Pe Dalet. Psalm LXXXIV, Psalm 84, according to the royal order of the Ethiopian Hebrews, and after the order of Malachi, Tzedek, the righteous king, after the order of Karmawi, Haile Selassie. Today's daily psalm, joy in the sanctuary. At this point, the Asaph Psalms, the Psalms that we know as the Asaph, gather, Asaph Psalms, they end. And some more of the Korahite Psalms, they appear. In its intense love for the communion, the common union, the Tawahida with Egzia, the sustainer, the good, the generous Ab, Father, with Ha-Elohim, the true good, the true God. the true Trinity, the Holy Trinity, which is to be experienced in the sanctuary, in the Mikdash. In the Mekdesh, Selassie is the chapel. This Mizmor, this psalm, this chant, vocal intonation is a companion to the Korahite psalm, Psalm XLII to Psalm 42. But whereas in the latter, in Psalm 42, the XLII psalm, I had the lament, a lamentation, sad song, the Hebraic blues of one to whom adverse circumstances and situations had denied that privilege. Now I hear. Now we hear the joyous tones of a pilgrim who recounts his deep happiness in standing, the Amidah, standing once more within the sacred, the holy, the set-apart precincts. The poem, it supplies no clue to the poet's identity or his history. In fact, his words are more than personal. They echo the sentiments of every religious, every really just, righteous soul, every righteous psyche in every epoch. Today's daily psalm, according to the royal order of the Ethiopian Hebrews and hereafter the order of Malachiah Sedek, Mizmor Fe Dalet. Mizmor Pe Dalet. Psalm 84, Psalm LXXXIV.
So here, a couple more minutes here. So here, let's ride up right here with today's daily psalm. First this right here, Selassie is a chapel, the interesting theme right here. As we study the Torah right here, the sanctuary, the pattern.
Remember not to try to defend for the sound, defend for the music, defend for the positiveness of music. When the man live amongst music, you see music a godly thing, you know. Listen, I live amongst country in a country. I live amongst fish part people, meet your man time and say, good morning, Uncle Ness, how you do? God bless you, my son. I live amongst them people, I live amongst people who get up and cuss every day. So I always a Rasta from creation. So Rasta is the whole thing, is not the influence. Rasta the thing, everything, every other thing. We don't know what go on about the other thing then. Rasta the first.
Is the champion.
Kick it out, champion, sound like not to dread. You don't know Jamal and states of Batarang.
Power of the Trinity. Build your mind on this serve the living God and living God, your troubles to is the only King of Kings. King of Kings, King of Kings. Come
triumphantly we all must sing. All must sing. All must sing. I search and I search this book of mine. In the Revelation, look what I find. Hail Selassie is the champion.
Jamarvin, keep the rubber drum spinning. Let it tune, the message is speaking. Keep the rubber drum spinning. Let it tune, the message is speaking. Keep the rubber drum spinning. Let it tune, the message is speaking.
Whom shall he teach knowledge? And whom shall he make to understand doctrine? Them that are weaned from the milk and drawn from the breasts. For precept must be upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little and there a little. For with stammering lips and another tongue will he speak to this people.
Hebrew boy, everything takes time.
מזמור פ"ד למנצח על הגיתית לבני קורח מזמור. מה ידידות משכנותיך, אדוני צבאות, נחשפה וגם קלטה נפשי לחצרות אדוני ליבי ובשרי, ירננו אל חי. גם ציפור מצאה בית ודרור כן לה, אשר שתה אפרוחיה את מזבחותיך, אדוני צבאות, מלכי.
Blog Talk Radio. Your show is scheduled to start in 21 hours, 59 minutes.
Please call back within 15 minutes of schedule.